Hey everyone, Brad here with the Accendo Studio. We've had a few people ask about the Kerf Table, and it is completed and installed, and so I wanted to take a minute to kind of look back through the process of the design and how we assembled the table, and also look at some things I would do different, some things I should have thought through more thoroughly before I started. So that coming up right now. The challenge we first set out was to design a table with one sheet of plywood and no fasteners. Through sketches and some math, we determined that one sheet of plywood would yield a table about 36 inches long. By creating a joint in the table, we could make a much longer table using 1.5 sheets of plywood. So, 3 sheets of 1/2 inch plywood would yield 2 7-foot long tables. With these large and unruly pieces, I wanted to minimize handling them. By making 3 pieces at 8 foot long and 3 pieces at 4 foot long, and alternating these joints at each layer during assembly, this allowed for a minimum setup. Once assembled, this created 2 joints that aligned, one at the top and one at the bottom. I could have been more thorough about thinking through the assembly process. I did dry fit everything, but with the glue drying on the previous layer and moving quickly, I applied glue to the wrong face of the center sheet. No problem, right? It's the center layer, so I'll just flip the piece over with the saw curves facing to the outside radius. However, this decision had huge structural implications, resulting in a very wobbly right-hand leg. I believe you got to be willing to make mistakes if you want to learn, and be open and ready to problem solve. Problem solving is a lot of what we do as architects and designers. That's where the real design takes place. The solution was to add a small brace at the interior radius. Not ideal, but this really stiffened the leg. Now the challenge of how to treat the aligned joint at the overlap. I figured, great, I'll create an inlay at this joint to match the heart pine of the feet, but cleaning up the plywood joint to accept the inlay created an even weaker point at this location. Perhaps a thinner inlay, or maybe each layer was a different length where none of the joints would align. But the glue was dry and I needed a desk. The quick solution was a plywood brace on the underside of the table. It's not super noticeable, and I can live with the few screws needed to keep the table flat. Lesson learned there about aligning joints. But I think we arrived at a creative solution to celebrate this joint with more heart pine and mimicking the Kerf aesthetic we use for the feet. I wanted to paint the leading edge of the table, and what you see here is me filling the voids of the plywood edge with Bondo, typically used as body filler in car repair. I think this is probably a common technique with woodworkers that use plywood. It creates a nice finish for paint. Add some adjustable levelers and we're ready to set up in the office. I do love the fact that the table appears light and slender in profile, but is actually quite heavy and really sturdy. 1.5 sheets of 1/2 inch birch plywood is not light, and I really like the waterfall edge that the kerf bending creates. I also really like the color combination here, which plays off the overall color scheme of our interior and will fit nicely with the birch flooring that is going in my office. Probably the best lesson I learned from the table was it gave me some other ideas to solve some other problems we have here in the office. So like and subscribe if you want to follow along with the process of creating this ledge, which my hopes is it can support photographs, and there's a surprise behind here that is also something that solves another problem in my office. So be looking for that. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.